Hey everybody, welcome to part 1 of the Perfect Vanish guide. Today's episode, we're just going to talk about the 3 main ways you can perfect vanish your opponent and what perfect vanish is. Perfect vanish, let's just go ahead and knock that out first, is when you or your opponent cues an attack card and the other one cues a vanish at the same time. This is different than normal vanishes because if a perfect occurs, your opponent or yourself will not be able to respawn. They just immediately get to start the combo. Obviously, this is very powerful in Dragon Ball Legends because your typical exchange is a very quick kind of guessing game of if they will sidestep and catching them in the sidestep. If you are quicker in your reaction or floating forward with your blast armor, there's a lot of ways to initiate, and then there's perfect vanish. Right, and it feels like it's an absolute moment, right? Oh, they got a PV, the combo starts, and there's just nothing you can do going forward other than maybe do a striker blast cover, whatever your deck provides. But outside of that instance, it does start the combo, which is why it's very valuable in your typical gameplay to be able to manipulate. So there's 3 ways to perfect vanish. The first being a time stop PV. Second one would be predicting your opponent, and the third one would just be random. I cued a sidestep, my opponent happened to throw an attack, bing bing boom, I got a free combo, right? That one's pretty controversial though. We'll get more into that later. Let's go ahead and focus on the first one, which is a time stop perfect vanish. Now, time stop PV is probably the most reliable way to perfect your opponent. It's certainly the only one I really try to attempt in an actual ranked PvP. If you know your opponent, you can start looking at the prediction PVs more. But a time stop PV is simply use a green card or a main ability. It stops the timer count, and then you cue a sidestep. If you happen to do it when your opponent does a strike or a blast attack, or frankly any attack card, it could be a green card that's a projectile that attacks, it could be anything. As long as it could trigger the vanish in the first place, it can trigger perfect. And because of Legends and how the game works, it stops the timer count, so you don't actually have to be perfect at Legends. You don't need to be, by the books, predicting your opponent's moment and then swipe, right? The time stops, you calmly cue a vanish, and then bing, bang, boom, go off to the side and hit your opponent. Time stop PV. Very easy to do. The footage that you're currently watching should be showing that you can do it off a main ability, green card. You can do it off your opponent's main ability and green card too, frankly. It can also be punished. We'll get into how not to get PV'd, but if you cue a green card and then cue a sidestep and your opponent didn't do anything, they can hit you with a blue card across the field, or if they're right in front of you, they'll grab you with a strike arts, or they'll do something of that nature, right? So obviously it has its downsides, but if you're across the field, you feel like your opponent might be going for a blast card and you're feeling out the situation, you pop your main ability and you cue a sidestep, that might be a very rewarding play, and it's one I personally perform quite often because even if they do kind of tap bait you, or they do something that beat the PV that you just tried to fish out, you can swap into another unit. There's more option available, and we'll obviously dive deeper into that when we go specifically into time stop PVs in another video, and bring up specific examples you can look for in your own gameplay. But it's something to look out for. The second one is, it's always going to be arguable, right? When your friend will jokingly say calculated or something, when it's like, that was a crazy play, but be the prediction PVs. And that's when, you kind of feel your opponent out, or a typical Legend situation. Like the footage we have playing for you right now is, 2 players find themselves at neutral, they float backwards. Maybe it's because it's the end of the match and you have a rising rush, and so you float to the back of the stage so you can safely get your blast arts off without being hit by your opponent's rush or whatever it's going to be. But this moment happens all the time, right? 2 players float back, and then one immediately cues an attack, whether it's a strike, cancel, whatever. If you feel that moment and you immediately sidestep, that's a PV. That's obviously one of infinite number of situations you can think of where you could feel out your opponent. That's all a prediction PV is. You can argue or not say it's skill. I would say that a lot of things in Legends is rock, paper, scissors very quickly, and frankly fighting games in general is just reading your opponent. And I've had matches where I've just looped my opponent, and I've had matches where my opponent has just looped me. They know everything you're about to do, and every time you try to do something, they just float back, get you again, and you just sit there and you're like, wow. Especially when you're versus someone with a lot of card draw, it just feels like you're just watching your phone the entire time. And I would say that prediction category is very much skill based, and it's a rewarding aspect of the game. The main reason I'm okay with it is that all characters will have access to that, and that comes with time. Most prediction PVs, it's someone that's put a lot of time into the game, so they have a very 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 firm understanding of Legends, and that's why they're able to do these to their opponent consistently. And the last one is, where all the controversy comes from, and that'll be the random perfect vanishes. Now, random PV is probably the most heart-sinking moment. Very very tense into the game. Maybe you're one hit away from death or whatever, right? You and your opponent are just floating around, and then he's just sidestepping constantly, right? You don't have any blue cards on you, so you've got to randomly throw an attack, and if your opponent just happens to get it, they're gonna PV you, and that's the end of the game. Or you get that player that literally, and for the footage you're watching right now, probably it's just all they do is vanish and float backwards, vanish and float backwards, and they're just waiting for hopefully one of the three vanishes they pop was be a PV, and they get the PV, they combo you out with some card draw speed, get access to their other three characters, and then that's what the next situation is. Or it's a really passive character like Namek Goku or something, and they fish for PVs and float to the back of the stage with their counterattack, and it's like, really? Is this it's one of the more obnoxious things you have to deal with in Dragon Ball Legends, and it's probably why people hate Perfect Vanish the most, because anybody can abuse a random Perfect Vanish, right? It's just swipe till you go, and then you'll get it. And I gotta say, as much as I hate the moment when it happens in game, that's the nature of fighting games, right? I'm sure you guys have all had the moment where you throw a tap blast and your opponent just happened, and just pure coincidence, right? They use the blast arts, gets you all the way across the stage. You could obviously just vanish the blast arts. Maybe you're playing Broly and you could have blast armored the blast arts. 100 different things that could have happened, but no, you threw a tap blast. They decided for God knows what reason to hit a blast arts, and they get a free combo. Not only did they get a free combo, but they still have their vanish up. That's, in my opinion, far more powerful than Perfect Vanish, and that's just a air quotes perfect blast arts card. Great, I happen to just randomly land this. Random dumb luck has won again, right? Or if somebody uses a tackle right off the bat, and I just randomly decide I'm going to strike arts you at mid-range, right? That's a perfect strike arts if you're not, right? Your opponent can't vanish it. There's nothing they can do about it. The combo hadn't been initiated. These are just random moments in the game where two players just happen to call each other, and it's unfortunate for one player. Now, obviously, those aren't apples to apples compared to, little Timmy floating to the back of the stage and then swiping endlessly as he has a blue card on his Namek Goku just waiting for you to mess up. But I feel like, like I said, we'll go into countering Perfect Vanish in another video, but you can punish those players that act that way if they do float to the back of the stage. There's ways to deal with that, and unfortunately, Legends is a very quick game, right? The matches are done in 2.5 to 3 minutes, and you never see that person again, and it kind of sucks when someone hangs a W over you. But you know, the fight can be concluded in 3 or 4 actions. You can mess up twice, and it can determine the entirety of the outcome. So I wouldn't get hung up too much on if somebody's able to gimmick you with a perfect vanish spam and you just happen to trip over and fall. I don't think that's indicative of Legends as a whole, and I certainly wouldn't want to remove perfect vanish as a mechanic due to some people exploiting the mechanic and some people getting tripped up, because in the grand scheme of things, I would say the prediction vanishes and the time stop vanishes do display skill, do display risk reward investment, and stay true to the nature of Dragon Ball Legends. You know, a lot of this game is very fast-paced rock paper scissors, right? When you're sitting and let's talk about a situation that isn't perfect vanish. You vanish your opponent and you're waiting for them to sidestep, right? They could wait. You could strike right away, and if that person's waiting to do their sidestep, bam, you hit them. Dang, this person striked right away. They got me. Or maybe they wait for their sidestep to the point where you watch them sidestep and then you strike into them and you get them that way. Or maybe your opponent just happened to feel you out, waited for the moment they thought you were going to vanish, or not vanish, go for your attack, and they swiped on that moment, and then boom, they vanish you out of the strike. You know, that it's no different. It's the exact same moment. It's your opponent with dumb luck feeling you out, doing mix-ups in their own gameplay, and you know, reaching a conclusion that is them hitting you or you getting the combo on them, right? So I would say I'm a supporter of PV. I do believe this is a mechanic that can be exploited, practiced, and improved on in your own gameplay. And you know, I might just be talking in circles, so let's go ahead and start reaching a conclusion on the video here. I think that we should, as a community, try to, you know, master this mechanic. I am going to go into my other videos here soon, and we'll start with the time stop mechanic and go into, you know, more instances in your gameplay where you might be experiencing getting PV'd by your opponent time stopping you, and some ways that you can actually get out of the time stop PV, you know, if you find yourself in it. But until the next time, I'll catch you guys later.